While this video was being made, a pseudo-documentary about an international DNA study aimed at determining Columbus's origins aired on Spanish television. The program began on a promising note, acknowledging that Columbus's history is shrouded in mystery and that he deliberately concealed his origins. The study, which began over 20 years ago, focused on analyzing the remains of Columbus in Seville, as well as those of his illegitimate son, Fernando or Hernando. They also tested the remains of Columbus's brother Diego. Surprisingly or not, the results suggested that Diego was not his biological brother, but rather a second-degree relative. A finding that aligns with the Portuguese theory, as you'll see later. Fast forward to the end of the documentary. All DNA samples supporting the Genoese theory, over 100 from individuals with the surname Colombo, had been tested and ruled out. The same process was applied to the Iberian theories, and all but one came back negative. Curiously, this theory was the only one in the documentary that lacked actual samples from potential relatives for comparison. Despite this, the DNA study concluded that Columbus's genome was compatible with Jewish ancestry, lending some genetic support to the Jewish theory presented here. The study fell short of providing the conclusive results many had hoped for, and the documentary quickly veered into unsupported speculation about his origins, contrary to the concrete answers the public was expecting. If anything, the DNA study definitively debunked the Genoese Colombo claim, instead shifting the focus of Columbus's genetic origins back to the Iberian Peninsula. Now, let's return to the Portuguese theory and the cryptic signature where we left off in the last video.
What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell just as sweet. William Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet. So who was really this man that signed Expo Ferens? As you may have noticed, I never use the names Columbus or Colombo. These are not names the navigator ever used in his documents. He always went by the name Colon and signed using an abbreviated form for his first name. The first three letters, Expo, are an ancient Greek abbreviation for Christ, while Ferens is Latin, meaning bearing or carrying. Together they represent his first name, Christ-bearer. Christopher in English, Cristobal in Spanish, and Cristofam or Cristovam in 15th century Portuguese. Interestingly, his name is recorded in the Portuguese form very early on in the first Vatican documents, not in Latin nor in Spanish, but in Portuguese. The same goes for his surname Colombo, spelled with an M as it would be in Portuguese, rather than the N used in Spanish. It's also important to note that whether spelled with an M or an N, his name does not translate to pigeon, which is the actual meaning of the Italian name Colombo or Columbus. In his biography, his son Fernando Colon clarified that his father's Latinized name should be Colonus, derived from the Greek for member, not from the Latin Columbus, meaning pigeon. That means that the mistranslation of his name was already widespread at the time due to printing. It's time the world, except for Spanish speakers, stopped calling him by the wrong name. As expected of a person who is determined to hide his real name and identity, Colon's signature is a puzzle that still defies resolution, but there have been a few attempts to crack it. According to the investigators Barreto and da Silva mentioned earlier, Colom was hiding his real name behind a cryptogram. As in the Jewish theory, the top of the signature, in a pyramidal shape, starts with what could be a prayer. In this case, the letters SSAS stand for Salve, Salve Ave Salve, and XMY, Christ Mary Joseph, Colon Expo, Christ Saviour, Salvador in Portuguese. Feren, bearer, but also abbreviation of Fernandez, son of Fernando. Funny-looking S, actually a Z, represents his surname Zarco. So, according to this theory, his real name was Salvador Fernandez Zarco, born in Cuba, Portugal, a name that can also be found in his monogram by deciphering the letters S, F, and Z. Who then were Columbus's real parents? His real name was not Christopher Colon, Colombo, or Columbus, So forget everything you've learned about a Genoese weaver. His own genealogical record begins with him and his brothers. There is no mention of Domenico and Susanna Colombo, the parents traditionally attributed to him, nor any parents at all. This is exactly what you'd expect from someone who had adopted a new name and identity. So who were Columbus's real parents? That is extremely difficult to answer, as he made sure to conceal his origins, and any records have likely been altered or destroyed. However, some investigators believe clues to his identity can be found in the cryptic signature he used to sign his letters. His presumed father was a very powerful figure linked to navigation, which may explain Columbus's statement that he was not the first admiral in his family. One theory suggests that Dom Fernando de Portugal, Duke of Viseu and Royal Prince, may have been Columbus's father. Dom Fernando was the Master of the Order of Christ and played a key role in Portugal's maritime explorations from 1460 to 1470. He himself participated in expeditions along the Atlantic coast of Africa and possibly America, a fact known to a small circle of navigators at the time. These early expeditions were later invoked in claims challenging Columbus's inheritance rights in favor of his companions. On his mother's side, Columbus is believed to have been linked to Isabel Gonçalves Zarco, the daughter of João Gonçalves Zarco, a Portuguese knight and explorer who established settlements in the Madeira Islands where Colum married and lived. It is also possible that Columbus had Jewish converso ancestry through this lineage, as the Zarco family name was associated with prominent Jewish families in Portugal. Jews in Portugal enjoyed relative protection and held significant positions in society until the early 16th century. Colon's maternal grandmother may have been descended from the noble Colonna family of Italy, possibly inspiring his adopted surname Colon.
The beauty of this theory is that, in the end, it ties together both the Italian and Jewish theories, as Colom was a descendant of the Colonna family and had Jewish ancestry on his mother's side.
Since this was a secret, illegitimate affair, the mother was sent to a remote property of Duke Fernando in the Portuguese village of Cuba, where she remained until the birth of their son, the future navigator. It's also worth noting that Duke Fernando reportedly had other illegitimate children with different women, which could help explain the results of his brother Diego Colon's DNA test.
It's been a long journey, but at this stage, it's safe to say that Colon and Colombo are two different names, corresponding to two different persons. Even in the New World, we find echoes of his Portuguese ancestry, as many of the names Colum gave to places in the Caribbean are of Portuguese origin and commonly found in Portugal.
It is plausible that Colon wanted the island of Cuba, the place he referred to as the most wonderful sight he had ever seen, to bear the name of his birthplace, the Portuguese village of Cuba. Although Colom named the island of Cuba Juana, he also used the name Cuba interchangeably. However, one thing is certain: no semantic shift is needed for Cuba, the name of the Portuguese village where Duke Fernando had his family estate. If Colon's given name was indeed Salvador, it could explain why he named the first island he discovered Guanahani San Salvador.
If Colum was indeed a Portuguese spy, his mission was a resounding success. He successfully diverted Spanish attention and resources towards the Americas. This allowed Portugal to focus on its own explorations and conquests in the east. By the time Spain realized the true extent of Colon's deception, it was too late. Portugal had already established a firm foothold in the spice trade. The world had been irrevocably changed. Everything seems to point to a Portuguese origin that he worked very hard to conceal. If today, centuries after his voyages, Cristobal Colon's true identity remains a subject of debate. Was he a visionary explorer, driven by a genuine desire to discover new lands and expand the horizons of the known world? Or was he a cunning deceiver, manipulating events and people to serve his own ends, or perhaps a bit of both? The duality of his character adds to the intrigue, making it difficult to pin down a definitive answer.
The evidence, while open to interpretation, suggests that there is more to this story than meets the eye. Perhaps we will never know the whole truth about Colom's origins. The mystery is compounded by the passage of time, with many original documents lost or destroyed and others forged. But by questioning the official narrative and embracing the mystery, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the complexities of history. Engaging in these debates allows us to explore different perspectives and understand the multifaceted nature of historical figures. The quest to uncover the truth about Colon challenges us to look beyond the surface and consider the broader context in which these events occurred. It is a reminder that history is not always as it seems. Despite all this, he remains known by the wrong name even today, a testament to how thoroughly he buried his true identity. Yet his tomb inscription hints that he hoped the truth would eventually come to light. Inti Domine speravi non confundar in aeternum. In thee, O Lord, I have hoped. I shall not be confounded forever. In the next video, we'll explore the curious coincidences between two kings, seemingly unrelated, who lived second lives after their supposed deaths. I'll see you then. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share.